This episode of The Answer is Yes Baja Sessions is brought to you by Baja Bound Insurance Services. Driving to Mexico? You can buy and print out your Mexican auto insurance policy online in minutes with their easy-to-use website. They also have great travel information to help you plan your trip south of the border. Visit bajabound.com.
Hello, this is Ryan Thomas, and you're listening to the Baja Sessions. Over the last 3 decades, I've lived, worked, and played from the top to the tip of the majestic peninsula of Baja California. And because of this, I've met some incredibly interesting people with equally interesting stories. And today on the Baja Sessions, we're going to chat with one of them. Matt Martelli, I'm stoked to have you on the Baja Sessions, man. How you doing today?
Hey, man, I'm stoked to be here. When you told me about this whole project you started, I thought it was a great idea, and I'm stoked to be here.
Well, I got to say, I'm almost kind of embarrassed that it's taken me this long to think about calling you and asking you to do one of these because there's so many reasons to be talking to you and kind of weaving Baja in and out of it. So I saw a post the other day on the on your Legends rally, and I was like, oh, that's a perfect way to get in and start talking to him. I mean, I was telling you earlier before I pressed record that it's almost like the roles are reversed for me. Listeners have heard me rant several times about my past and guiding tours for Wide Open Adventures for over a decade. And, man, to now be getting to talk to you about you doing the same thing, it's kind of a cool scenario for me. So before we dive into that, though, I'm looking on your bio here on the Legends Rally website, and going to Baja since he was 13. Why? Why in the world were you interested in Baja at age 13?
Well, I got really lucky. My brother and I were born in Michigan, in Detroit, and then Kalamazoo, and we moved here when I was 12 and he was 10, and we got literally the weekend I was here. The first weekend we were here, we went to Mickey Thompson. The second weekend was like Ocotillo and Glamis, and then the third weekend was the Baja 500. So as young male kids, we thought we had died and gone to, kid heaven,
You were indoctrinated the first month you were here.
Oh yeah, and we couldn't believe it, and we just couldn't get enough. So, truthfully, it's a really funny story. My neighbors told my parents, they're like, hey, we're going to go to Ensenada for the race. Can we take Matt and Josh? And, they said yes, but I don't think they understood that Ensenada was in a different country. I thought they thought that was like an extension of East County. So, we lived in El Cajon at the time, and we thought this was the coolest thing on the planet. So, I just was real lucky getting introduced to it at a young age. And then, also surfing. It's just a magnificent coastline to surf, and that's also ties into off-roading because most of the surf spots you have to off-road. So it just became this thing of like, well, this is what everybody does, right? This is how you live your life. And, you just go down there and you're free, and the people are awesome, and the food is awesome. And, you keep uncovering stuff. So to me, travel is totally addictive, but because we have such a treasure in our backyard, I just, any opportunity I get to go down there, I'm like, whether it's off-roading or going down and sharing Guadalupe Valley with friends, or, like you've told me about places that I've gone to. So it's really cool, man.
It's funny. I was very lucky to have been born into a family that we owned a company that manufactured off-road race cars, and I've talked about that in the past. But I, as a kid, got somehow introduced to the ocean and started surfing at a real early age. And there was always this battle within me as I was growing up. Was I a desert person? Did I like dune buggies and race cars? Or was I a beach person? And did I like surfing and the sand and waves and so on? And was funny after I'd moved to Southern Baja and was living there and realizing that I could hop in my Volkswagen Thing and drive in the dirt out to shipwrecks to go surfing and then drive my Volkswagen Thing back in the dirt to my house. I realized that I'd found the solution to my dilemma. I didn't have to be one or the other. I could be both, and that existed, as you said. I mean, at the time, it really was my backyard or my front yard, but just across the border, and we have this wonderful, wonderful place called the Baja Peninsula. So I share the love with you, and the listeners know that. And unlike like a lot of my friends, I have a lot of friends that know Baja through racing. But I also have a lot of friends that know Baja in a lot of different ways. And I've been telling people recently, this podcast to me is this way that I can weave basically all good things in my life somehow are connected to Baja. The people I know, the things that I've experienced, the places that I've been to, somehow they all kind of weave back into Baja. Friendship with you, I mean, I can definitely trace in some capacity a friendship with you back to Baja. But let's steer this a little bit towards the Legends Rally, because I remember I got to go with you on the inaugural trip, and I want to say, was it 2 years ago, or was it even more than that? Wow.
We had this idea, and it was really Chad Ragland and I. We did this trip the year prior to go film a father and son trip for Polaris. And during the trip, we were having so much fun, and it was Chad Ragland and Larry Ragland. It was Bryce Menzies and Steve Menzies. And then it was R.J. Anderson and his dad, Randy Anderson. And these guys are legends, and they've spent years going up and down the Baja Peninsula, but we discovered we all had the same problem, which is that, when you go down there to race, you're in a hurry. Even pre-running, which we love and we think is so great, we're not stopping and smelling the roses, And I got to.
You don't even know there's roses when you're down there for a race. It's just a blurry thing on the side of the road.
Right, and then you hustle to get back, and as soon as you cross that border and your cell phone starts working again, you're like, oh shit, here we go, So we had so much fun on this trip, and that coupled with sport UTVs coming online, really changed everything. So, the old days of going down there, you had to know somebody, you had to have maps, you had to have, $100,000 vehicle to really have a good time down there. And that just omitted a lot of people. And so with the advent of UTVs and especially the sport models, all of a sudden we have this vehicle that everybody can go out and, make a $200 payment and, stock. They're really, really good. And especially now what they've evolved into. I mean, I just did, 400 and something miles with, two guys in the back of my seat. One of those guys is Sal Fish, and he was impressed, right? So, you're talking about a guy who's been in every vehicle and every situation all over Baja. But, after having that experience, we decided to start the Legends Rally with the whole goal of bringing people that were either, hadn't experienced Mexico or Baja down and showing them some of the good stuff so that they would return and go, okay, if this is here, it's the tip of the iceberg. What else can we experience?
I like that. You use the word some of the good stuff. You let them just taste it. Exactly. Because there's and you can't show them all the good stuff. I will tell you that I'm probably going on 30 years of exploring down there, really. And there's no shortage of times where I go, man, I had no idea this was here when I stumble into it.
And that's, how fun is that? I mean, there's the Cheese Cave in Ojos that, I've only known about that for 4 or 5 years. And now Marcelo, who owns it, is a good friend of mine. And, everybody who knows me knows that I navigate by food, and that's one of my stops for sure every time I go down there.
That's, I think, something that is, we talked about this a little earlier. You are one of the people that I know that has fully embraced the Baja culture. It's not just about the nightclubs in southern Baja. It's not just about the cool off-road trails to you. It's not just about any one thing. You've embraced every aspect of it. And I admire that about you, and I there's a kinship there with you as well. I learned many, many years ago that there's so much more in the peripheral outside of the motorsporting. There's nothing wrong with the motorsporting side of it, but there's so much more beyond that. And to like I said, there's a kinship I share with you because the other aspects are so rich and fulfilling when you engage with it, and don't just blaze through the desert and not stop and recognize that there are roses. There's roses all along the trail.
No, absolutely, and I agree with you. I feel the same way, in the relationship with you. And it's funny though, because I'm good at distilling ideas down, and I always question that, like, why am I so obsessed with this? Like, and it's travel is a common denominator that brings people together through experiences. But off-roading is a different way of traveling, because if you think about it, you've consciously made a decision not to go down the beaten path. It's like the whole world is traveling on a freeway and they're having the same experience, and it's homogenized and it's safe, and it tastes the same way it tastes. It smells the same way it tastes. And yeah, it's safe, but you're not really going to experience culture and beauty and everything that goes along that unless you get off that paved road, and that to me is what being an off-roader is about, is the willingness to, whether it's Baja or another country, and just go, and just go, you know what, you're not going to die. You got some water, you got your friends, you got a vehicle, and, how many nights have you slept stuck in the middle of nowhere and we're fine, right? And it actually ended up being a good time most of the time.
Some of the best stories get told, yeah.
Yeah, and to me, that's the funnest thing about going down there and having this experience and then sharing it with people. Because seeing that stoke on their face when they realize that, there's 100-year-old cheese cave and there's 100-plus-year-old wineries that make good wine sprinkled all over Baja, it's like you just blew their mind, and that's fun. It's fun to share that.
Well, so that was something that I was going to bring up. This whole concept of taking people to Baja and sharing, to steal the phrase from Cameron Steele, sharing the stoke.
Absolutely.
So as early as 1996, 1997, I was guiding tours down there in purpose-built off-road cars. And I was young. I was 25, 26, 27 years old. And what I started to become aware of was the happiness or the joy that I could help provide people. And I mean, even when I thought things were going wrong, transmissions broke and we're stuck in the middle of the desert and whatever else, when I thought things were bad, the experience that our clients had it was life-changing for many of them. And I started to pick up on that and feed on that. Some people need or feed off of attention and celebrity or stardom, but I really started to find a whole bunch of pleasure in being able to show somebody something that ultimately changed the way they saw. I used to say that Baja helped people discover who they are, to learn who their real self is. And I got to be there for that when people got to experience that. And then the best thing is they come back the next year and they bring a friend or they bring family members, and it continued. And so I'm curious. I mean, that has to be, you're not too far into this. I mean, you've done half a dozen of them or so. Am I right when I say that, or have you done more?
Yeah, no, about, we've done about 8 now.
Yeah.
And, I listen, I agree. I think there's this inherent thing with us as human beings that we want to connect. And, it's gotten all messed up by everything, society, cities, now the internet and social media and